That was my family. 4 years, I paid their mortgage, cleared their debts, even put my own life on hold just so they could thrive. I thought one day they'd see me, appreciate me. But instead, the night I came home to share the biggest accomplishment of my life, my father laughed and said, "You're the most useless one in this family." In that instant, something inside me broke, and something else was born. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked away with a smile. Because I knew one thing. They had no idea what was coming. This is how I turned betrayal into justice, and justice into revenge. My name is Isabella Carter. I'm 35 years old, and I live in Tucson, Arizona. From the outside, you might think I grew up in a picture-perfect family. A father who worked as a respected contractor, a mother who was known in the church choir, an older brother everyone bragged about, and a sister who was treated like royalty. People who looked in from the outside thought we were the Carters, the shining family on the hill. But the truth? I was always the invisible one. From as far back as I can remember, my parents made it clear who mattered. Marcus, my brother, was the golden boy. Everything he touched was supposedly brilliant. His football trophies lined the living room, his B- grades were celebrated like he was some kind of genius, and every mistake he made was brushed off as boys will be boys. And then there was Felicia, my sister. She was the princess, delicate and adored. My mom bragged endlessly about how our Felicia is destined for greatness. Every art project she brought home was pinned to the fridge like a masterpiece. Every speech she gave at school, even if mediocre, was treated like the voice of a future leader. And me. I was just Isabella, the quiet one. The one who stayed up late helping fold laundry while the others slept. The one who got straight A's and barely heard a word of acknowledgement. My art projects, tossed aside. My dreams, ignored. I became the background of my own family portrait. But here's the thing. When you're invisible, you learn to survive. I threw myself into studying. I worked part-time jobs through high school, not because I had to, but because I wanted to prove I could stand on my own. I bought my own car at 17, paid my way through community college and later university, working late nights at diners, tutoring kids, taking every scholarship I could get. Meanwhile, Marcus got a free ride. When he flunked out of his first semester in college, my parents quietly paid for him to switch schools. Felicia wanted law school? They took out a loan in their names without a second thought. And me. The moment I hinted I wanted to study abroad for a semester, my father laughed and said, "We don't have money to waste on pipe dreams." I didn't fight back. Not then. I swallowed the sting and worked harder. By 28, I had built a career in event management. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. My work ethic, the very thing my family never noticed, was the reason companies trusted me with six-figure budgets and high-profile clients. I was proud, quietly proud. And yet, I still craved their acknowledgement. Isn't that the cruelest part? You can be an independent adult, you can pay your bills and stand tall in the world, but deep down, you still want your parents to say, "We see you. We're proud of you." That's why I started helping them. When my father had heart complications, I stepped in with $3,000 to cover what insurance didn't. When the mortgage on the family home fell behind, I quietly transferred $1,500 every month into my parents' account so the bank wouldn't come knocking. When Felicia's final year of law school tuition came up short, I wired $5,000 without hesitation. And I didn't tell anyone. Not Marcus, not Felicia. Not even my parents fully realized how much I had sacrificed, because I didn't shove it in their faces. I just thought, this is family. This is what you do for family. But here's the part that still makes my chest tighten when I think about it. No matter how much I gave, no matter how many times I came through, the narrative in their eyes never changed. To them, Marcus was the star, the successful real estate agent with his flashy Instagram life. Felicia was the queen, the lawyer who made it big. And me. I was just the girl who organized parties for a living. My mother even once introduced me at church as our little planner. She throws cute events. I wanted to scream. I manage contracts bigger than your entire mortgage. But I didn't. I just smiled. Year after year, I waited for a moment where they'd finally see me. Truly see me. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, I thought, maybe this year, they'll appreciate what I do. Maybe this year, they'll invite me to sit at the table, not just serve it. I clung to that hope like it was oxygen. And that's what made what happened next. The betrayal, the cruelest cut of all. Because when you spend your life being overlooked, used, and dismissed, there comes a moment when something inside you snaps. And when that moment came for me, I realized I had two choices: break down completely, or rise up in a way they'd never expect. I chose the second. Thanksgiving has always been my battlefield. That year, I poured my soul into it. 2 straight days of chopping, baking, roasting. I barely slept. The kitchen smelled like sage and butter, pies cooling on the counter, turkey brine to perfection. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I pulled it off flawlessly, they'd finally look at me differently. Maybe my father would brag about me the way he bragged about Marcus. Maybe my mother would take my hand and whisper, "We couldn't have done this without you." But when the big day came, I walked out of the kitchen still wearing my apron, arms sore from lifting trays, sweat still on my forehead, and what did I see? My family already gathered around the table, plates loaded, glasses raised, laughter bouncing off the walls. Not one of them waited. Not one of them noticed that I hadn't even sat down. The worst part, my mother, Lorraine, lifted her phone and posted a picture online. "So blessed for another Thanksgiving with my family. Look at Marcus's amazing turkey recipe. He's such a talented chef." Marcus hadn't even touched the bird. He showed up 2 hours late, carrying nothing but a bottle of cheap wine, and yet the glory belonged to him. My dishes, my hours of labor, it was as if I were a ghost in my own home. I felt something snap that night. Still, I told myself Christmas would be different. I wanted to believe in second chances. But I should have known better. Marcus had just bought a new house, a sprawling desert view property with tall glass windows that screamed, "Look at me, I've made it." Naturally, he announced he would host Christmas dinner. And by host, I mean he would open the doors while I did all the work. 2 weeks before the holiday, my mother called me. Her voice was brisk, like a manager assigning duties to her employee. "Isabella, here's the list for Christmas. We'll need 2 turkeys this time, 3 pies, scalloped potatoes, roasted vegetables, cranberry relish, and oh, don't forget to pick up a floral centerpiece. Be sure you arrive early to help set up Marcus's dining room. He's so busy with his clients, he doesn't have time for details." I remember staring at my phone, my hand shaking. It wasn't a request. It wasn't even a conversation. It was an order. So for the first time in my life, I said no. "Mom," I said, my voice flat, "I won't be cooking this year. I've worked every holiday for you. I'm tired. I want to actually enjoy Christmas for once." There was silence on the line. Then she snapped. "Don't you dare take that tone with me. Do you realize this family exists because of Marcus? He's the one who makes us proud. He's the one who carries the Carter name. You're nothing without us. You should be grateful you even have a place at his table." Her words were like acid on my skin. Nothing. That's what I was to her. To them. I held the phone to my ear for a few more seconds, hearing her rant, but my mind had already gone somewhere cold and sharp. A place where love had burned out, replaced by clarity. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just hung up. Christmas Day came, and I didn't go early. I showed up exactly at dinner time, wearing a red dress and carrying a single bottle of champagne. No trays, no pies, no steaming casseroles. My mother's eyes widened like I'd betrayed some sacred contract. Marcus barely looked at me. He was too busy shaking hands with neighbors and showing off his house. But the real dagger? That night, as guests sat down, Marcus raised his glass and said, "Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm proud to share this incredible dinner curated by yours truly." And then he gestured toward the spread I had been expected to make, the spread my mother and her friends had scrambled together in a rush after realizing I wasn't playing along. It was pitiful compared to my usual feasts, but no one seemed to care. On Facebook, Marcus posted, "So proud of my Christmas dinner. Nothing better than family and food." Hundreds of likes rolled in. Comments like, "Wow, Marcus, you're so talented," and "Save me a plate, chef," filled the thread. And my name, my effort, my existence, once again erased. I smiled through the evening, but inside, I was done. That was the final blow, the one that killed the last flicker of hope inside me. It wasn't just neglect anymore, it was theft. They had stolen my work, my sacrifices, my identity, and handed it all to Marcus on a silver platter while telling me I was nothing. But they had made one fatal mistake. They thought my silence meant weakness. What they didn't realize is that silence can also mean planning. And in that moment, sitting at Marcus's glittering table, watching him bask in stolen glory, I made a promise to myself. This would be the last Christmas I ever spent as their servant. The next time they saw me, it wouldn't be as the forgotten daughter. It would be as the reckoning they never saw coming. The night after Marcus's Christmas spectacle, I sat in my apartment with the lights off. The champagne bottle I had carried still stood unopened on the counter, mocking me. My phone buzzed endlessly with notifications. Photos of Marcus's famous Christmas dinner circulating through Facebook, old classmates leaving comments about how proud my parents must be. No one knew the truth. No one saw the years I had poured into holding this family together. That was when the idea began to crystallize. If they were so determined to erase me, I would make myself unforgettable. The first step was evidence. I opened my phone and scrolled back through years of text messages from my mother. Line after line of commands, not requests. Pick up the turkey by noon. Felicia will bring the wine. You handle the rest. Make sure Marcus's favorite pecan pie is on the table. Not a single thank you. Not one acknowledgement. Just endless demands. I screenshotted everything. Thousands of texts, saved in neatly labeled folders. Then I dug through my old recipe notebooks, handwritten instructions for dishes I had perfected over the years. My mother's handwriting appeared here and there, little notes like, "Marcus loves this, don't forget," as if my recipes existed only to feed his legend. I photographed each page, every smudge of flour, every fingerprint that proved these creations were mine. Next came the receipts. Grocery bills stretching back years, all paid from my own pocket. While Marcus bragged about business deals and Felicia flaunted her law career, I had quietly drained my bank account to keep the table full. I compiled them, page after page, the financial backbone of our family dinners, and the proof that their perfect son had contributed nothing. But gathering evidence was only half the battle. I needed to understand the bigger picture. There was one asset that mattered more than any holiday meal: the house. My parents' home, the one with the manicured lawn and the vaulted ceilings, wasn't Marcus's achievement, no matter what he wanted the world to believe. It had been my grandfather's, passed down through inheritance. Legally, the property belonged to all of us, Marcus, Felicia, and me. Yet somehow, Marcus had convinced my parents it was his house, his triumph, his gift to them. I wasn't a lawyer, but I wasn't naive either. I made an appointment with a local attorney, Mr. Delgado, who specialized in family estate disputes. Sitting in his quiet office, my stomach churned as I laid out the documents I had: copies of my grandfather's will, property tax records, and letters my parents had written years ago acknowledging the shared inheritance. Mr. Delgado adjusted his glasses, flipping through the papers. Finally, he looked up. Ms. Carter, you have a case. If your brother misrepresented ownership and your parents supported it under false assumptions, you can assert your claim. At the very least, it proves Marcus's narrative doesn't hold. His calm voice was like oxygen in my lungs. For the first time, I felt something new, leverage. Still, I knew the legal route would take time. And Marcus was a master at charm. He could twist any situation, play the victim, and come out looking polished. So I needed an ally who wouldn't be fooled. That's when I reached out to Aunt Margaret. Unlike my parents, she had always seen me. Growing up, she was the one who slipped me books about strong women, who told me that art mattered even when my father sneered at my frivolous hobbies. We hadn't spoken much in years. Family politics had pushed her aside, but I still had her number. When she picked up the phone and heard my voice, she didn't hesitate. "Isabella," she said warmly, "I was wondering when you'd finally call. I saw those photos Marcus posted. You cooked all that, didn't you?" Her faith in me cracked something inside. I admitted everything: the years of being used, the Christmas humiliation, the plan I was beginning to form. Instead of pity, she gave me steel. "Then it's time," Margaret said. "Time to stop letting them define you. Time to let the truth speak louder than their lies." Her support became my anchor. Together, we mapped out the broader strategy. This wasn't just about refusing to cook anymore, it was about dismantling Marcus's illusion of perfection. He had built his entire identity on the idea that he was the successful son, the generous host, the golden child. If I could show the community, the colleagues he bragged to, the neighbors he impressed, that it was all smoke and mirrors, his empire would collapse. So I began curating my arsenal. Screenshots, recipes, receipts, legal proof of my share in the family estate, and with Aunt Margaret's help, contacts in the community who could amplify the truth once it came out. But I wasn't reckless. Revenge without patience is just noise. I needed precision, timing, impact. So I smiled at family gatherings, played the dutiful daughter a little longer, and let them believe I was still their shadow. Behind that smile, however, gears were turning. Every time Marcus posted a photo of his perfect life, I saved it, knowing the contrast would make my evidence even sharper when the time came. Every time my mother barked another order, I logged it. Every careless insult became fuel. They thought they were safe because I stayed quiet. But in reality, I was sharpening my silence into a weapon. I wasn't planning to simply walk away. No. I was planning to strip away Marcus's crown in front of the very audience he lived for. And when the curtain finally fell, everyone would see him not as the golden son, but as the parasite he had always been. Christmas Eve arrived draped in glittering lights and false cheer. The Carter family home, the mansion Marcus insisted was his, shone like a stage, waiting for its star to perform. He had invited half the neighborhood, colleagues from his firm, and even city officials. This wasn't just a family gathering. It was his grand performance. And I played my role to perfection. "Of course, Marcus," I said sweetly a week earlier, when he shoved a list of tasks into my hands. "I'll take care of everything. Don't you worry." The relief in his eyes was almost laughable. He had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. Because I wasn't going to cook. Not this year. Instead, I'd hired a prestigious catering team under his name, complete with a lavish menu and extravagant service. It was exactly the kind of thing Marcus would brag about. Classy, expensive, showy. He believed it was happening because I was handling the details, and I let him bask in the illusion. Then, the morning of the party, I called the company and canceled. No food. No staff. No plan B. Marcus thought I was still working quietly in the background, like I always had. But this time, when the curtains rose, the stage would be bare. By 6 o'clock, guests began to arrive. Glittering dresses, tuxedos, holiday cheer. The entryway was a sea of expensive coats and false laughter. I mingled with a glass of wine, watching Marcus strut from one guest to another, dropping hints about his famous Christmas dinner. The dining room, however, remained shockingly empty. No roasted turkey, no side dishes, not even bread rolls. Just a long table set with polished silverware and empty plates. I watched the first murmurs ripple through the crowd. Strange, aren't they serving anything? Marcus's forehead glistened. Oh, the food's on its way, he stammered. You know how catering can be, fashionably late. But as the minutes stretched, whispers turned to suspicion. Guests shifted uncomfortably, their hunger and curiosity sharpening into irritation. That was my cue. While Marcus fumbled, I slipped into the corner of the room and pulled out my phone. With one press of a button, the first wave of truth hit the internet. Screenshots of my mother's texts, ordering me around like unpaid staff. Photos of handwritten recipes, my recipes, that Marcus had claimed as his own. Scans of bank transfers, thousands of dollars funneled into tuition, medical bills, mortgage payments. And finally, years' worth of grocery receipts, each one a silent ledger of my sacrifice. I posted them all, accompanied by a simple caption. For years, the Carter family's golden boy has taken credit for my labor, my money, and my silence. Tonight, the truth speaks. It spread like wildfire. Notifications exploded on my phone as neighbors, co-workers, and even distant relatives began sharing, commenting, asking questions. Some of the very guests at Marcus's party glanced at their screens and gasped. Wait, is this about this dinner? One woman whispered loudly enough for half the room to hear. Marcus's smile faltered. Don't believe everything you read online, he snapped, but his voice wavered. The cracks were widening, and everyone could see. That's when he cornered me, his face pale with panic. Isabella, fix this, he hissed. Tell them it's all fake. You're ruining me. I held his gaze, calm and steady. No, Marcus, you ruined yourself. But I wasn't finished. When my parents finally stumbled over, equally frantic, I delivered the final blow. I've made arrangements, I said evenly. Starting next month, you'll be moving into a new apartment. It's modest, but it's already paid for a year. My gift to you. My mother's mouth fell open. What are you talking about? This is our home. Our. I repeated. Grandfathers will named me just as much an heir as Marcus or Felicia. But you let him parade this place as if he built it with his bare hands. That illusion ends tonight. The deed will be corrected, and this house will no longer be your playground. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. Marcus's guests, those precious witnesses he had gathered to admire him, looked at him not with envy, but with disgust. A man who couldn't host his own party. A man exposed as a fraud, living off his sister's sacrifices. The golden son's crown crumbled in real time. His girlfriend slipped out without a word. His colleagues exchanged glances and quietly excused themselves. Even Felicia, usually smug and untouchable, looked horrified to be associated with him. By the end of the night, only the Carter family remained. Marcus seething, my parents in shock, Felicia silent. And me. I finished my glass of wine, placed it gently on the barren table, and said the words I'd been waiting years to speak. Dinner's over. So is my servitude. In the weeks that followed the disastrous Christmas party, Marcus's carefully curated image unraveled like cheap thread. First came the laughter, his colleagues at the law firm whispering behind his back, sharing the viral posts that exposed him as a fraud. He walked into meetings to find smirks and sideways glances, the kind of mocking silence that bites harder than words. No one respected him anymore. He was the punchline, the man who let his sister bankroll his life while he played the star. Then came the betrayal closer to home. His girlfriend, Vanessa, posted a single sentence on her Instagram story before deleting it. I refuse to be with a man who survives on his sister's labor. Within hours, she was gone from his life completely. Marcus had always thrived on admiration, on being the man people envied. But without the facade, he was just another parasite. And parasites don't attract applause. As for my parents, Thomas and Lorraine, their downfall was quieter, but no less cruel. The loss of the family home, their pride and joy, stripped them of the last shred of social standing. They moved into the apartment I had prepaid, but instead of gratitude, they simmered with resentment. Their circle of friends dwindled fast. No one wanted to sip wine in a modest two-bedroom on the wrong side of town. They had built their identity on Marcus's supposed brilliance and the grandeur of the house. Now, stripped bare, they had nothing left to brag about. But Marcus wasn't done yet. He thought he could rebuild. 2 months later, he appeared at a charity gala in downtown Tucson, decked in a tailored suit and his trademark smug smile. He'd been working overtime to paint himself as a misunderstood victim, spinning stories about jealousy and miscommunication. His allies were thin, but he hoped this event would be his stage to reclaim his crown. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Because I knew what was about to happen. See, months earlier, Marcus had bragged to me in private, not realizing I had started recording our conversations. He boasted about manipulating our parents, about keeping me in my proper place. His words still burned in my ears. They'll always take my side. Mom and Dad are easy to handle. And Isabella? She's useful, like a housemaid who doesn't get paid. That's her role, and she knows it. No, Marcus. I knew more than you ever gave me credit for, and now the world would know too. Halfway through the gala, as Marcus took the microphone to deliver a speech about family values and resilience, a ripple moved through the crowd. Phones lit up, screens glowing with a video that had just been released online. His voice, his arrogance, his confession. I use my sister like a servant. She's too weak to fight back. The recording spread faster than wildfire, picked up by a local reporter I'd tipped off. Within minutes, the hashtag Marcus Exposed trended across the city. Gasps filled the gala hall. Murmurs turned to outrage. Is this real? Did he actually say that? What a disgrace. Marcus froze mid-sentence, his face draining of color. His carefully rehearsed lines crumbled into incoherent stammers. Guests who had once praised him recoiled, stepping back as though he carried a disease. Cameras flashed, not in admiration, but in condemnation. By the time the night ended, Marcus wasn't the golden son anymore. He was a fraud, a parasite, a cautionary tale. Reporters hounded him, his law firm suspended him, and his so-called friends abandoned him completely. His name was poison, and there was no coming back. That night, just before midnight, my phone rang. Marcus. His voice was raw, almost broken. You've won, Isabella. Are you happy now? You ruined me. Everything I had, it's gone. I let the silence linger. Then I answered softly, but firmly. No, Marcus. I didn't win. You lost yourself a long time ago. The line went dead. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. 1 year later, my life looked nothing like the prison it once was. Gone were the nights of scrambling to cover bills that weren't mine, or the empty hours spent waiting for a family that never cared to notice me. Instead, my days began with the sound of laughter echoing through a space that had finally become mine, a bright studio in the heart of Tucson, where paint-splattered easels and cracked sketchbooks told a different story. It wasn't just my story. It belonged to the kids who filled the studio every afternoon, teenagers from struggling neighborhoods, children whose parents worked 2 jobs, kids who'd been told that art wasn't practical. I knew that feeling all too well, the sting of being dismissed, the weight of being told you weren't enough. So I opened the doors of my community art studio for them. At first, I worried no one would come. But word spread faster than I expected. Within months, the room buzzed with energy, brushes scratching, pencils flying, colors blooming across canvases. I watched them lose themselves in creation, the same way I once did as a little girl hiding in my room while my family ignored me. And when their eyes lit up at what they had made, I saw the reflection of a child I used to be, finally finding a place where she mattered. That was my true revenge. Not the humiliation of Marcus, not the silence of my parents. My revenge was living fully, openly, joyfully, without needing their approval. Margaret stood beside me through it all. She was the one who told me long ago that I didn't have to keep bleeding for people who would never stop taking. Now, she came to the studio almost every week, helping kids with sewing projects or simply sitting in the corner with tea, offering a smile that warmed the whole room. She wasn't just my aunt anymore. She was my anchor, my real family. And I had friends, too, people who saw me not as a servant or a shadow, but as Isabella. We hosted potlucks, shared stories, built memories that weren't transactional. For the first time, the word family didn't feel like a wound. It felt like a home I had chosen. As for my parents, they faded into the background of my life like distant figures in a painting I no longer cared to frame. The house they once bragged about was gone. Their friends drifted away. Marcus's career never recovered. He moved out of Tucson, clinging to whatever scraps of dignity he had left. And then one day, a letter arrived in the mail. The handwriting was shaky, familiar. Lorraine, my mother. I unfolded the paper slowly, my hands steady, my heart strangely calm. She wrote about regrets, about how she had failed me as a mother, how she had blinded herself with pride in Marcus, and in doing so, crushed her own daughter. She didn't ask for forgiveness, only said she hoped I found happiness. For a long moment, I sat in the quiet, the letter spread open on my desk. A year earlier, I would have cried. I would have begged for that scrap of acknowledgement. But now I only felt acceptance. Not joy, not anger, just peace. I folded the letter carefully, slipped it into a drawer, and closed it. That chapter was finished. I didn't hate her, but I wasn't going back either. I had built something new, something strong, and I wasn't going to trade it for the ghost of a family that never truly existed. Standing in the center of my studio, surrounded by paintings drying in the Arizona sun, I finally spoke aloud the words that had been waiting inside me all along. I am not their servant. I am not their scapegoat. I am Isabella Carter, and I finally chose myself. The words didn't feel like defiance anymore. They felt like freedom, and for the first time, I wasn't living in anyone else's shadow. I was living as me. Revenge doesn't always mean tearing someone else down. It can mean finally standing tall on your own. Isabella's story is a reminder that the cruelest betrayals often come from within our own blood, but also that freedom begins the moment we stop letting others define our worth. Her strength wasn't in punishing her family, it was in reclaiming her life, her dignity, her future. If you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or used, let this story remind you, you deserve better. You have the power to choose yourself. Now I want to hear from you. Was Isabella's revenge the justice she deserved, or was her decision to walk away the real victory? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more gripping stories of betrayal, justice, and redemption.